Hey everybody, it's Jack Hammer live from Levi Stadium, where tonight the 49ers and Chargers will get down on Sunday Night Football. Welcome to the preview show. We're going to get to it in just a minute. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go. Hey everybody, how are you doing on this great Sunday afternoon here at Levi Stadium? It's going to be a fun one tonight. 49ers, Chargers, big game to open up the second half of the season for the 49ers. Come in here at 4-4, need a big win tonight, I think, a signature type of win to get the second half started on the right foot, especially with the what we've seen go on today with the Seahawks losing out in Germany to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this morning. Really sets the 49ers up here to make up some ground in the NFC West. And this is the perfect chance to start to do that tonight against the Chargers, or one of the better teams in the AFC, kind of on the fringe of the playoffs over there in that conference. You look at this thing, and the 49ers are coming into this thing as a 7th seed in the NFC right now. They've struggled out of the bottom. Kyle Shanahan managing a record of only 2-3. But one of those wins was a big Sunday night win. Actually, I think it was a Monday night, back in 2019 against the Cleveland Browns. They came out and just blew the Browns out of the water. You might remember that one. And the 49ers had a number of players injured, and they're going to be coming back this week. You're going to see Deebo Samuel, Kyle Juszczyk, Juwan Jennings, Dre Greenlaw, Elijah Mitchell, Azeez Al-Shire, Jordan Willis, Colton McKivitz, all going to be available after missing either parts of the game or for sure were out in their last game 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles. So a big group of players coming back for the 49ers, and this is one that really sets up well for them, in my opinion. Let's go through. I got 5 keys, and I have my prediction for the game. We'll go through those. I'll take some of your questions as well to make sure that we hit on everybody's points before we get this thing rolling tonight. Number 1 for me was Jimmy Garoppolo needs to keep his strong play. He's been playing really well of late. The 49ers really need him to keep that up. He's been on a pretty solid streak so in these last 4 weeks. He's gone over 230 yards passing with at least 2 touchdowns. The last time that a 49ers quarterback was able to put up 230 and 2 touchdowns in four straight weeks was Jeff Garcia back in 2001. And he actually did it for 5 straight games. So Garoppolo will be looking to tie him today. In addition to that, Garoppolo currently ranks 5th in the NFL with 7.16 net yards per pass. And his passer rating of 100.7 is 6th best in the NFL. So 49ers being good play out of their quarterback position. And on Sunday, he's going to face a Chargers defense. You look at the Chargers, and I know there's been a lot of talk this week about the Chargers run defense not being all that great, and it isn't. But at the same time, their pass defense has been pretty strong, allowing only 6 net yards per pass attempt, which is 11th best in the NFL. So the Chargers have a pretty good pass defense, not so good on the run. I think that plays into part of why the Chargers have been able to win these games, though. Despite giving up a lot of yardage on the ground, 5 of the last 6 weeks, they've given up over 130 yards rushing, I believe is the number. But in those games, the Chargers are 3-2. So I think with the 49ers here, they're going to need Garoppolo to have a strong game, even if their run game is on point. You look at this in Los Angeles, they've been without Joey Bosa for quite a while now, but they still have Khalil Mack. Mack is still there giving opponents fits. He has 6 sacks on the season. No other Chargers defensive lineman has more than 2.5 this year. So it's really going to be a focus on the matchup between Khalil Mack and right tackle Michael McGlinchey. I think that's going to be a fascinating one to watch and kind of give us an idea of how this game plays out for the 49ers, because I know the run game thing is a big one that, like I said, has been pointed to. But for the 49ers to win tonight, they're going to need to get good protection, good play out of Jimmy Garoppolo. So there's your first one. Jimmy Garoppolo has to do good. Yeah, it is sunny out here, Joel. It's really sunny. I got the sun blasting on me right here. I wish this tree would hang down a little bit lower. I could see you guys a little bit better. But we got Randall Riley in the house over here. We got Odd Job. We got Gerald Hall. We also have Lucas from Austria is over here. The stadium was rocking in Germany. It was. I did catch a little bit of that, and then I also saw where I guess the German fans are big fans of Germans are big fans of John Denver and Country Roads. They were getting down to that one too. That was pretty awesome. We got Randall says, "Hi Jack, just watching Dak also throw a pick in the end zone. Good to see others in the league throw picks." Hey, right? I mean, that's one of the interesting things about this whole thing. We talk about these quarterbacks and the mistakes they make, and I know a lot was made about the game in Denver for Jimmy Garoppolo and how bad he played, and it was a lousy game there. And I know there was a lot of talk about that safety in the end zone. What that saves, but I don't know. I watched the game. The Bills game, and you have a quarterback who fumbles the ball in the end zone on a quarterback sneak, ends up costing his team the game, because even though they came back to tie it up, that's why that was one of the reasons why they were in overtime to begin with, and why they didn't close that game out, was because the quarterback couldn't take a snap from center, and so that gives a touchdown to the Vikings. And I know Jimmy Garoppolo is not Josh Allen, but I think it's interesting. You watch around the league the way that these guys play, and it's really an interesting scenario. That's for darn sure, because Jimmy Garoppolo gets a lot more hate from let's say hate. Jimmy Garoppolo gets a lot of knocks from some members of the 49er fan base that you watch other quarterbacks around the league, and I don't know, man. Jimmy Garoppolo, interesting quarterback, struggles at times. For whatever reason, the 49ers win a lot more games when he plays than when they don't. So we'll see how that plays out tonight too. Number 2, how's this offense going to look with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, both active? That's one of the things I'm looking forward to, because we know that this is really going to be our first true glimpse of, I think, what this offense will look like with the two. I know we saw them against the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago here, but that was different. McCaffrey just got to Santa Clara on Friday before the game. That game plan was kind of thrown together. He was just out there, only had a few plays that he can run. I think now the full playbook's at his disposal, the full game plan and everything else. So I'm really interested to see how Kyle Shanahan gets McCaffrey and Samuel melded together. And not only that, but you also have the running back Elijah Mitchell coming back tonight. And so how does he get McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell? How do those three all work together? It's going to be I think that's really going to tell you the story of how the second half is going to go for the 49ers, because with McCaffrey and Samuel, and if you can get that group together along with Mitchell, and I think the 49ers offense has the ability to put up enough points where they can be really make it a really interesting second half of the season in the NFL and get into the playoffs as well, and what that's going to be like. Garoppolo said earlier this week, it's a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses, and we saw it against the Rams, right? Against the Rams, Deebo Samuel wasn't out there, but you saw, for me, when I watched the film of that game, what I saw was George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey really causing fits for the Rams defense. They'd line them up on the same side quite often, and it was really you're either going to cover George Kittle or you're going to cover Christian McCaffrey. You can't cover them both, and depending on which one you go to, we're just going to throw it to the other one and let the guy make a play. And I think now you're going to see that even more so, and maybe you see a little bit of that with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk over on the other side, or even with Elijah Mitchell. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this whole thing comes together tonight from that standpoint. I think the Chargers pose a serious threat to the 49ers. I think they're going to give them a really good challenge. I think this is a game where if the 49ers can go out there and dominate, it really sets the tone for what they can do in the second half, because I look at their schedule and there's 2 games on their schedule that I think really kind of, make or break them over the second half. And it's tonight to get off to a strong start. There's the Dolphins coming up. And then the third one would be Tampa Bay. I know Tampa Bay, I think they're 5-5 now. They were 3-5 a couple of weeks ago. But you see them kind of turning things around and Tom Brady playing better. And I think it's going to be a fun second half to see how this plays out for the 49ers. I'm not going to say it's going to be great, but I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what else we got. Moon Man in the house with the super chat for $1. Just wants to throw $1 at me. Thank you very much. I'll dance for you for that. Woo! No, I'm not a very good dancer. My girlfriend reminds me of that all the time. Let's see what else we got here. We got people talking about different stuff. I don't see it, but if you guys can hit up some questions, I'll definitely answer them for you. So we've got Jimmy Garoppolo having to play good tonight, and then how is McCaffrey and Samuel going to do? In addition to that, what's the role for Elijah Mitchell going to be? Right? Is he going to be the backup to Christian McCaffrey, or are they going to both be in the backfield at the same time together at points? Really want to see how this all plays out, because you look at this and he's been out since injury to his knee week 1 against Chicago. But if you go back to that game, he looked really explosive in week 1 out in Chicago. He only carried the ball 6 times, but he had 41 yards on those carries. Now with Jeff Wilson Jr. out in Miami, scoring touchdowns and putting up big yardage for the Dolphins, it's going to be Mitchell that's going to be the guy that's called upon to be your grinder type of guy, right? He's going to be your bread and butter inside between the tackles runner. That's really what he is anyway. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, again, how Elijah Mitchell fits into this. Again, the Broncos are among the worst in the league in terms of yards per attempt. And that's one of the reasons why you see teams run the ball at them so much. So I'm looking forward to seeing, can the 49ers get big plays out of the ground game with Elijah Mitchell? Can they get big plays out of the ground game with Christian McCaffrey? Can they dominate on that side of the ball, but then also get some stuff out of the passing game? Because I think if the 49ers can get up to 27 points tonight, they win this game going away. I don't see how we're going to get into the defensive side here. I just don't know how Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense is going to change this around. Gerald Hall says, do you think Ayuk goes over 100 yards tonight? I think it's going to be a little difficult for him to get over 100 yards. They could be right around that in that ballpark, though. He's been really good this year, and he's been really good as of late. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the ball's distributed, though. How many targets does he really get? Because that's really been the 49ers are an interesting group, because usually they don't have one guy dominate. I mean, Deebo Samuel did to an extent last year during their run in the second half, but a lot of that was stuff that he was doing on the ground. The ball started getting spread around a lot more in the second half of the season. So I don't know if the 49ers really have a need to have for example, Ayuk over 100. I think this is a game for the 49ers and for Ayuk, and it's going to be tough through the air. I just talked about it. The 6 net yards per pass attempt being one of the better in the league. So I think you look at the Chargers, and they come in here with a pretty good pass defense. You're gonna want to get something out of it. But I would be hard pressed to say that Ayuk's going to go over 100 tonight. If I was betting and I had to say 100 was the line and I over or under, I would say he's going to be under 100 yards. I just don't see that. I think he's going to have some big catches for the team, but I don't know about big in terms of yardage, if that makes sense. So just too many guys out there on the defensive side. And then you look over at the offense, on the defense, you look at the offense, though, for the Chargers, and it's going to be, a question of, can the 49ers defense contain Justin Herbert? I think this is going to be an interesting one, because first off, there's been a lot of talk this week because of the injury to Justin Verrett. So 49ers defense kind of dealt a blow there, and that Jason Verrett with the Achilles tear out for the season, not coming back. But I think you look at this, and it doesn't change anything about the way the 49ers go about their business. They've been playing without Jason Verrett since week 1 of last season. It would have been great to have him back, but you don't. So you just go right back out there. I would expect to see Deommodore Lenoir on the outside opposite of Charvarius Ward. I think the biggest question is what happens with Jimmy Ward. Does he continue to play in the slot, or does he now slide to the back half? I think that's going to be the interesting one to look for. You look at this, and I think Tayshaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga, I think they've played very well together the first half of the season. That development is part of why DeMeco Ryans, I think, felt comfortable moving Jimmy Ward down to the slot to begin with, because, you look through Jimmy Ward's career, he's never really been a good slot cornerback. He wasn't good in 2014 through 16 at all in that role. Wasn't very good. They moved him back to the safety spot in 17 and really liked what he could do there. He's very good when playing down in the slot when he's covering against tight ends and running backs, but he's not really good down there against wide receivers. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this out in the second half of the season. Or does Jimmy Ward just go back in and he's the starting the starting safety, and they've made some other adjustments. That's one of the things we don't know. It's been a couple of weeks since we saw this team play last, and down in Los Angeles against the Rams, there was a point in that first half where the 49ers coaches appeared to be frustrated about something that was going on because they actually pulled Jimmy Ward off the field for a couple plays, put Ambry Thomas out, slid Diamador Lenore inside to that nickel spot with Thomas playing on the outside. So it'll be interesting to see how this transpires today. So I'm looking forward to seeing that whole thing. But you look at Justin Herbert. This is the guy who you've seen a bit of a drop off in his production this year. Definitely in touchdowns in yards per attempt, but it's easy to explain. You look at the Chargers, and there's no Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is out right now, so that gives you two of his top receiving threats, and neither one of them are going to be playing tonight. So without Allen and Williams, Herbert's average depth of target drops to only 5.2 yards per pass attempt. So that's a big number. So for the Chargers tonight, it's going to be Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter. Those are your two leading wide receivers for the Chargers. And then you have Gerald Everett at tight end. Everett was a former Ram who had some big games against the 49ers back in 17 and 18, who then spent last year up in Seattle. So that's your tight end wide receiver combo. Carter is more of the deep threat of the group with Palmer and Everett working underneath. That's a matchup that kind of favors the 49ers. And one issue, though, that I could see would be the pass rush for the 49ers. Samson Ebukam injured his quad on Monday. He's listed as doubtful, which means it's highly unlikely that he's going to be playing tonight. So, how does the 49ers get their pass rush going? We know you've got one with Nick Bosa, but he needs some help. So you look at it with if Ebukam's not able to go, you're probably going to turn to Charles Omenihu and Jake Jackson as your first two guys off the bench there. It wouldn't shock me to see Omenihu starting opposite of Bosa tonight if Ebukam is unable to go, with Jackson kind of subbing in there. They both played pretty well. They each have 3 sacks on the season. So I think that's probably how it goes. And, the other one I mentioned this earlier, Jordan Willis coming off of the IR. He hasn't played this year. He's going to be activated. He's active, or he should be active tonight. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in. Willis, a solid edge pass rusher, can work from the inside as well. And then they have a bunch of different guys. They also have Kerry Hyder Jr., who we haven't really heard much from this year, but I would expect that if Ebukam doesn't go, my guess is it's going to be Charles Omenihu that starts in place of him, and then Drake Jackson will rotate in. So that's the other piece. You look at you go back to this one, and the Chargers just don't have very much firepower. Seems very similar to where the 49ers were 2 weeks ago when they went down to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers can work this out, because their offense definitely lacking some playmaking ability. Alan says, Jack Hammer over under, can Bosa get 2.5 sacks? I think I would say probably under. I would say 2 sounds about right. So if I was going to over 2.5, I would say under on that number. I think what we're going to see tonight from the Chargers is a game plan that get the ball out quick, maybe take a shot or two deep, but for the most part, it's going to be a lot of underneath stuff. Take that pass rush away from the 49ers. You look at who they are right now offensively. Their leading wide receiver, and that's the last point that I have, is Austin Eckler. Can the 49ers defense can they corral Austin Eckler? I think that's one of the big pieces of this game tonight. And you look at Austin Eckler and what he brings, and he brings that underneath pass, right? He's a screen guy. He's a dump off guy. There's a reason why his average depth of target is minus 1.5 yards. Mostly that's going to come on screens. He catches stuff out of the backfield, so it's never really down the field. But you look at Eckler, and Eckler's a good receiver, not very much of a runner. Eckler, you look at his yards per carry this season, I think he's like 4.2 or 4.3 in that ballpark. But that's really based off of one really big game against the Cleveland Browns. He went off against Cleveland. Big running day. We saw Miami do it again today against the Browns. So the Browns obviously have some issues with stopping the run. But Eckler went out there, put up huge numbers against the Browns. Outside of that game, though, He averages 3.1 yards per carry this season. So you look at this game, and it's all about keeping Austin Eckler in front of you. Don't let him get behind you, whether that's a run that beats you down the field. I think that's kind of going to be a little bit more unlikely. Or, him making a pass out of the backfield that gets behind your defenders, behind Fred Warner and Azeez Al-Shire, who's coming back tonight, or Dre Greenlaw, who might be active, who is expected to be active, excuse me. But if you can keep Austin Eckler in front of you, if you can keep this Chargers offense in front of you and not allow that big play, force them to work the ball down the field, I think that really plays to your strengths for the 49ers. And that's one of the things we saw from the 49ers over the second half of last season and why they were so good in that stretch getting into the playoffs and then in their run in the playoffs to the championship game, was that they didn't allow big plays very often. And even if there was a big play, it wasn't a touchdown, and they were able to kind of come back from that. We saw it in Green Bay, right? The big pass play down the sideline, big gain. Tart makes the tackle. So instead of a touchdown, he makes the saving tackle, and then a couple of plays later, I think it was a blocked field goal right before the half. So keep everything in front of you. Make the Chargers move it down the field. This game's going to come down to, at the end of the day, which team turns the ball over more. I talked about the run game for the Chargers defense, how they're not doing well on that side of the ball. How they're, but the fact that they're still 3-2 in those games when they've given up those large amounts of yards over these last 6 weeks. But part of that also is that they've been winning the turnover battle in those games, and those 3 wins that they picked up during that time, and they've won the turnover battle. So this one comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo holding on the football in terms of not turning it over, making a few plays here and there, the running game being strong, but just for the 49ers, and I wrote this back during the bye. The 3 keys for the 49ers: execute. If the 49ers execute, they can beat any team in the NFL because they have the talent on offense and they have the talent on defense to go out there and play with any of these teams. Even Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, I truly feel they have the ability to play with them. That was one where the defense just couldn't get a stop. Offensively, they were able to move the ball early on, but kind of throughout until late in the midway through the second half. But their defense just couldn't come up with a stop in that game. But they weren't there. The defensive side was the one that wasn't executing necessarily. So, but you look at it for me, execute on offense. You need to stay healthy. 49ers got a lot of health coming into this game. You mentioned all those guys that they have coming back, and then the last one was the finish. And I think that's really what it's about. Is we've seen the 49ers have leads and not be able to finish the games off. We've seen them get through big stretches of the season and not be able to finish it off in a championship game type of scenario. So for the 49ers tonight, it's all about executing. If they execute, I think this is a game that the 49ers can take care of business. So really quick, as far as my prediction, let's get to that prediction. I see this tonight as a 49ers victory. I'm calling it tonight. I had it as a 49ers victory, I believe, before the season. Definitely feel strong about this one tonight. I think the 49ers win this game 27-17 against the Chargers. The 49ers offense with the addition of McCaffrey is just different. And I feel like they're going to be able to go out. They're going to be able to move the ball. They're going to be able to get some points. And then on the defensive side, they're going to do enough to be able to slow Fields down, not let him make the big plays. And at the end of the day, the 49ers finish this thing off with a 27-17 victory, move to 5-4 and they'll be a game behind the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West. So that's what I've got as far as my predictions for today. I'll be back later on after the game with a post-game show, kind of break this thing down. I'm going to try to get on a little bit earlier than I usually do. Hopefully this game goes the way that I said. I can get my writing done quickly and get out here and talk to you guys, because I'd like to have a nice back and forth, have you guys maybe even call in and throw some questions and stuff like that at me as well. So hope you guys have enjoyed the game tonight. Again, 49ers 27, Chargers 17. That's my prediction. We got Rafa 5629ers. He's a member of the Toolbox, and he's coming in 27-17 as well. Odd Job comes in. He says 38-15 49ers, which I like that one as well. Raphael569er says, great show, Jack. Hey, Raphael, thank you so much. You're one of the good ones. Very supportive. I appreciate it. We got a lot of supportive folks over here, and I want to say thank you to everybody. If you guys could do me a favor, you guys could hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, subscribe to that as well before you leave. But hit that like button on your way out. Like I said, I will be back tonight after the game, giving about an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half, depending on the interviews and my writing. And I'll be back here to break the game down with you from here live from Levi Stadium. So thank you all so much. I'll talk to you all soon. Enjoy the game.